Welcome to Whispers of Crime. We're looking at a case today that for 50 years has been this gaping wound in American criminal history. A man who in the middle of the day just vanished.
Vanished in broad daylight, July 30, 1975. The air in suburban Detroit is thick, hot, the kind of midsummer heat that just settles into the asphalt. Jimmy Hoffa drives himself to the Machus Red Fox restaurant,
He's going to a meeting?
a sit-down, with two men he knows are, frankly, dangerous. But he feels he needs to make peace to get his empire back. He waits in the parking lot. An hour goes by. They don't show. He calls his wife, Josephine. He says he's coming home soon, gonna grill some steaks.
Just a normal, everyday detail.
Completely normal.
Yeah.
Then, just as he's about to leave, a car pulls up. A maroon sedan. Hoffa gets into the back seat. And that is the last time anyone ever sees him alive.
It's the most famous unsolved mystery in America, but that's not really the full story, is it?
No, not at all. And that's the chilling part. The FBI knows what happened. Internally, the case is considered solved. They know who ordered the killing. They know the men who likely pulled the trigger. They know who drove the car.
And they have forensic evidence. Real hard evidence.
They have the absolute smoking gun. Hoffa's own hair found inside that car. DNA tested. Confirmed. But here's the part that haunts us 5 decades later. Nobody ever goes to prison. Not one single person was ever prosecuted for the murder of James R. Hoffa.
And the body.
Gone. Vanished completely. Which denies his family any kind of closure and denies the courts their most crucial piece of evidence.
So what nobody talks about is that they let the killers just walk free.
Exactly. The FBI had the evidence locked away, keeping the most important files classified for decades. Now, 50 years later, there's renewed pressure. The government is being forced to confront all of this. Was Hoffa's body cremated right there in Detroit? Or was he buried deep in a New Jersey landfill? Why couldn't they prosecute when they knew everything? What secret with the U.S. government protecting that was more important than getting justice for the biggest mob hit of the century?
Today we're investigating that 50-year quest for justice. We're tracing his dramatic rise from a labor hero to an associate of organized crime, and we're going to dissect the evidence that solved the case but could never win it in court.
And when you hear those mundane details, the call to his wife about grilling steaks,
It stops being this big historical mystery and it becomes a brutal family trauma. For his wife Josephine, his kids James P. and Barbara, it has to be this open wound 50 years later.
it's the completeness of it, the total erasure. That's what's so haunting.
Think about the man's power. He had the loyalty of 2.3 million workers. He was one of the most powerful and feared men in the nation. How does any organization, even the mafia, erase a man of that stature so fast, so efficiently, that all they leave behind is silence?
And endless rumors.
And endless rumors.
That question, the question of erasure and the total denial of justice is what we're tackling today. It's an astonishing failure of the American legal system. And to understand why he vanished, you first have to understand the immense power he had and how that power led directly to his own destruction.
Okay, let's step back a bit. To really get the motive here, we need to understand the scale of the empire he built and the criminal alliances that were just woven into its very foundation.
James Riddle Hoffa was born in Brazil, Indiana in 1913. His father was a coal miner. After his father's death, the family moves to Detroit. Hoffa is just 11. He saw the hardships of the working class firsthand. He leaves school early, gets a job, and even as a teenager, he just has this natural genius for organizing.
By negotiating. He had a reputation for being tough right from the start.
Oh, very tough, fearless,
Yeah.
completely dedicated to the rank-and-file workers, but also more than willing to use intimidation and muscle to get his way. He marries Josephine Poziwak in 1936.
And his rise in the Teamsters Union, the IBT, was just incredibly fast.
It was meteoric. He joins Local 299 in Detroit in 1933. By 52, he's the international vice president. And then in 1957, he takes over the whole thing. He succeeds the corrupt Dave Beck as president of the entire union.
And this is where he becomes a legend to the truckers, the guys on the ground. He didn't just run the union, he completely reshaped American logistics.
His signature achievement was absolutely groundbreaking. It's what secured his legendary status.
Yeah.
In 1964, he negotiates the National Master Freight Agreement,
Which is a huge deal.
a monumental deal. It unified pretty much all North American truck drivers, local carriers, long-haul guys, everyone under a single, powerful contract. This wasn't just about tweaking wages, it fundamentally reshaped the entire trucking industry. It meant massive guaranteed gains in pay, in benefits, in working conditions for what eventually became 2.3 million members. To them, he was a hero, their champion, and that loyalty was the source of his power.
But that power, that invincibility, it came with a huge price tag. The same ability to unify and control made the Union a massive target for the criminal underworld. You can't separate the legacy of Jimmy Hoffa from La Cosa Nostra.
It's impossible. That's the dark alliance at the heart of his career. Hoffa needed muscle to control strikes, to consolidate territory, to keep local union officials in line. So he cultivated relationships with powerful mob figures. He made a Faustian bargain that gave them a direct line into the biggest, wealthiest union in the country.
And the vehicle for that partnership, the thing that ultimately gets him killed, was the pension fund.
The Teamsters Central States Pension Fund, Hoffa's creation. It was supposed to provide financial security for millions of his members. But because Hoffa and his associates controlled the investments, it quickly became the mob's private bank.
How did that work exactly? When the FBI called it the most misused pension fund in America, what did that actually look like?
It was audacious. They didn't just steal from the fund directly, that would be too easy to trace. Instead, they controlled who got massive unsecured loans from the billions of dollars in the fund. These loans would go to mob-connected businesses, casinos in Las Vegas, huge real estate deals in Florida, projects that could never get a legitimate bank loan. And often, they never paid the money back.
So they were using the retirement savings of truckers to finance their entire criminal enterprise.
That's exactly it. The FBI estimated the losses were in the tens of millions, maybe more, through the 60s and 70s. This fund wasn't just a symbol of power, it was the mechanism of wealth for crime families all across the country.
And that kind of power made him the #1 target for the federal government.
Specifically for Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. The rivalry between Hoffa and RFK was legendary and deeply personal. Kennedy saw Hoffa as the biggest single threat to the integrity of American labor, and he went after him relentlessly with the Get Hoffa Squad in the early 60s.
And eventually they got him.
They did. 2 major convictions in 1964. First in Nashville, Tennessee, for jury tampering. That case was built on the testimony of a key FBI informant, a man named Edward Parton. He got an 8-year sentence for that.
And there was a second one.
A separate conviction in Chicago for fraud and conspiracy, all tied to the misuse of that Central States Pension Fund. That added another 5 years, so a total of 13 years. He finally went to federal prison in March of 1967.
But even from prison, he was trying to run the show, right? Through his vice president, Frank Fitzsimmons.
He tried to, but it was a political deal at the highest level that got him out. And ironically, that deal is what sealed his fate. In December 1971, after serving just under 5 years, President Richard Nixon commuted his sentence.
A move that was seen as deeply corrupt.
Highly suspect. It's widely believed to be payback for the Teamsters' financial support of Nixon's campaign. But the commutation came with a fatal condition. A poison pill.
What was it?
The terms explicitly barred Hoffa from engaging in the direct or indirect management of any labor organization until March 6, 1980. It meant no Teamsters presidency. Not for another 7 years.
For a man whose entire life, his whole identity was the union, that must have been just unbearable.
It was. And the date he disappeared, July 30, 1975, tells you everything. He'd been out of prison for less than 4 years, and he was consumed by one single goal: getting the Teamsters presidency back, condition or no condition.
He was obsessed.
Utterly. He'd lost his legal fights against the condition, but he's still trying to line up his old allies for a comeback. But the world had changed. While he was gone, the mob had cemented their control through Frank Fitzsimmons, who was now powerful in his own right. Fitzsimmons and the crime families were not about to hand back control of the pension fund to a man they now saw as erratic and dangerous.
So Hoffa's return wasn't just a union power struggle. It was an existential threat to organized crime's biggest cash cow.
Precisely. The classified 1976 FBI assessment, the Hoffa's memo, spells it out. It concluded Hoffa posed 3 specific, non-negotiable threats that demanded his elimination. 1. He publicly promised to clean house. If he got back in, he would immediately throttle the mob's access to the pension fund.
Cut off the money.
Cut off the money.
Okay.
2. He was desperate. Agents believed he might actually cooperate with federal authorities to get that Nixon condition overturned.
He might become an informant.
The ultimate betrayal in their world. And 3, maybe the most critical.
Tie.
He knew everything. He had intimate first-hand knowledge of 2 decades of mob Teamster financial ties. That knowledge could put dozens of powerful mob figures in prison. It could cripple entire crime families.
He knew too much, and he wanted his power back too badly. So knowing his life was on the line, how deep was the betrayal when he agreed to meet the very men who wanted him gone?
That question brings us right to that parking lot. To the most scrutinized afternoon in modern American crime. The setting was the Machus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, just north of Detroit. An upscale place.
Yeah.
It was also a place with a personal connection for Hoffa. His son's wedding reception was held there. It was supposed to be neutral ground.
And he drove himself.
He believed he was going to a summit with Tony Provenzano, a Genovese capo from New Jersey and a major Teamsters official, and Tony Giacalone, the top Detroit mob enforcer. Giacalone was supposedly the mediator, there to settle the bad blood between Hoffa and Provenzano.
He was walking straight into a trap, thinking he could talk his way out of it. It says so much about his ego or his desperation.
It seems to be the tragic conclusion. Let's run through the FBI's timeline because it's incredibly precise. Hoffa gets to the Machus Red Fox at about 2:00 p.m. At 2:15 p.m., he makes his last known phone call from a payphone. He calls his wife, Josephine. He's annoyed. He tells her neither Giacalone nor Provenzano have shown up. He says he'll give them a few more minutes, then he's coming home to grill steaks.
Unbelievable.
For the next half hour, people see him waiting, pacing the parking lot. He even shakes hands with a few people he knows. He looks irritated. Then, in the FBI's critical window between 2:45 and 2:50 p.m., a key witness sees Hoffa get into the back seat of a late model, maroon Lincoln or Mercury. The witness is clear. 3 other people were in the car. And crucially, there was no apparent struggle.
No struggle. That's the key, isn't it? It means he knew the person driving, or at least trusted them enough to get in the car. He thought they were taking him to the real meeting. He was waiting for a peace talk, but he got into a car with his executioners.
And that car became the only piece of irrefutable physical evidence in the entire investigation. It was a maroon 1975 Mercury Marquis Brougham. It belonged to Joseph Giacalone, Tony Jack's son. But the FBI confirmed he was being driven that day by Charles Chucky O'Brien.
Hoffa's foster son. The ultimate betrayal.
The ultimate betrayal. Investigators moved fast. In August 1975, police dogs trained for human scent were brought in. They got a positive hit for Hoffa's scent in the car. But that's not enough for a court. The real link, the prosecutable link, came much, much later.
The DNA.
The DNA. In 2001, 26 years after he vanished, the FBI lab got a breakthrough. They matched a single strand of hair from the back seat of that Mercury with DNA from Hoffa's personal hairbrush, which the family had kept.
That's just stunning. After all that time, DNA doesn't lie.
It proved beyond any doubt that Jimmy Hoffa was inside that car on the day he disappeared. On top of that, when they impounded the car, they found a 12-gauge shotgun in the trunk and different kinds of bullets, .22 and .38, in the glove compartment. This wasn't just a ride. The car was prepped for violence.
And Chucky O'Brien, the foster son, he denied it his whole life. He maintained Hoffa was never in that car.
Vehemently. He claimed the DNA must have been from some other time. His alibi was that he was driving the car around Detroit that day, delivering a large shipment of salmon and whitefish to a Teamsters official. An innocent errand.
But the FBI didn't buy it.
They systematically took it apart. His credit card receipts, witness statements, it all contradicted his story. The Bureau officially ruled his account was false.
So if they knew he was lying and they had DNA putting Hoffa in his car, why wasn't O'Brien ever charged with anything, not even obstruction of justice?
That's the core legal problem of the whole case. Without a body and without a witness willing to break the mob's code of silence, they couldn't prove O'Brien was a knowing conspirator. I mean, proving he lied about where he was is one thing. Proving he intended for his foster father to be killed is a much higher bar. The DNA puts Hoffa in the car, but it doesn't put the gun in O'Brien's hands, so to speak.
The audacity of using his own foster son as the lure, it's just remarkable. It guaranteed Hoffa would let his guard down.
It eliminated any need for force. Hoffa got in the car because Chucky was driving. It's a testament to the cold clinical planning.
Before we go any further, a reminder. Don't forget to follow Whispers of Crime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and other podcast platforms for daily updates on every crime, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Whispers of Crime. Like, share this episode with others who might have information about this case, and help. Also, comment your suggestions below. Drop your positive review and rating, and remember to check out our recent released crime case like this.
So, while a public case went cold, inside the FBI they were certain. Their certainty was written down almost immediately in a document that's become legendary in this case, the Hoffa's memo.
Tell us about that.
It was completed in early 1976, a classified 56-page FBI assessment. It details all the core findings and establishes the Bureau's official internal consensus on what happened to Hoffa. It is the single most important document in this entire story.
So what were its core conclusions? What did the FBI decide had happened?
The conclusions were unambiguous. 1. Hoffa was murdered, probably very soon after he got in that Mercury. 2. The murder was ordered by top figures in organized crime to protect their access to the pension fund. And 3, and this is the key to the whole 50-year mystery, the body was disposed of, most likely by incineration or cremation, making recovery almost impossible.
So the FBI knew who ordered it and who carried it out. Let's trace that chain of command. Who is at the top?
Investigators and historians agree the ultimate authorization, the green light to take out a figure as big as Hoffa, came from Russell Bufalino. He was the head of the northeastern Pennsylvania crime family, a very powerful, very quiet boss with deep, long-standing connections to the Teamsters.
And who did Bufalino task with the actual operation?
The person believed to have selected the hit team was the very man Hoffa thought he was meeting, Tony Provenzano, the New Jersey Genovese capo. He had a systemic motive protecting his turf and a viciously personal one. Provenzano and Hoffa hated each other. He'd threatened Hoffa in prison, told him he'd pull out his gun.
Some men in the car, the actual hit team.
They were Provenzano's crew from New Jersey. The primary suspect named in FBI intelligence is Salvatore Salibugs Briguglio. He's considered the probable shooter. Along with him were his brother, Gabriel Briguglio, and another enforcer, Thomas Andretta.
So the FBI has the motive, the location, the car with DNA, the name of the boss who gave the order, and the names of the killers. This is the most shocking part. With all of that, why was no one ever charged with the murder?
The Hoffa's memo itself explains it. It says they couldn't prove these conclusions with evidence that would survive in court. The problem wasn't knowing who did it. It was the inability to meet the burden of proof.
Let's break down those specific reasons, the impediments to justice.
There were 3 huge ones. First, the body problem. Without remains, you don't have the most compelling forensic evidence. You can prosecute a murder without a body, but it's incredibly difficult. The mob knew that. They planned for it.
Okay, no body. What was the second problem?
The silenced witness. Salvatore Salibugs Briguglio, the probable triggerman, was himself murdered, gangland style, in New York in 1978. Investigators believe he was killed because Provenzano feared he was about to cut a deal with the feds on another case. His death removed the one person who could have flipped and confirmed the entire story.
And the third impediment?
This is the most complex one. The informant dilemma. This wasn't an investigative failure. It was a strategic choice by the FBI. Agents like Kenneth Walton, who worked the case for years, have said they knew who did it. But a prosecution would have required them to reveal the identities of their confidential informants inside the mob. They were unwilling to sacrifice those assets.
So the government made a trade-off. They protected their intelligence network, which they needed to fight organized crime nationally, over getting justice for Jimmy Hoffa.
That's the cold reality. The intelligence from those sources helped them win dozens of other cases. That ongoing flow of information was deemed more valuable than a single high-profile murder trial that, without a body, they might lose anyway. The case was solved internally, but legally, it was untouchable.
And because of that official silence, the whole thing became an American obsession, a vacuum that was filled with some wild theories and false confessions.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
The most famous, by far, is the one that got the Hollywood treatment. The Confession of Frank Sheeran. He was a mob hitman who claimed in the book, I Heard You Paint Houses, that he was the one who shot Hoffa in a house in northwest Detroit.
The basis for the movie The Irishman.
Exactly. But let's be clear. That account has been meticulously and thoroughly debunked by criminologists, journalists, and investigators. It just falls apart when you look at the evidence. The timeline doesn't work. The location is implausible. The FBI's intelligence has always pointed to Provenzano's New Jersey crew, not Sheeran. It's widely seen as a fabrication to gain notoriety.
And he wasn't the only one who tried to write himself into the story.
Not by a long shot. You had serial killers like Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, who came out with this crazy story about kidnapping Hoffa, stabbing him, and putting his body in a steel drum that was sold as scrap to Japan. It was pure fiction. The FBI confirmed he was never even a suspect.
So if we set aside the debunked theories, the real search for the body has always bounced between 2 places, Detroit and New Jersey.
For decades, the most prominent theory was the Jersey City landfill theory, championed by journalist Dan Moldea. It was based on a tip from 1975 that Hoffa's body was driven hundreds of miles to a landfill run by a Provenzano associate. The idea was Tony Pro wanted the body on his home turf.
And that theory got new life just a few years ago, didn't it?
It did. A man named Frank Capella came forward in 2019. He said his late father, who co-owned the landfill, confessed on his deathbed that he buried Hoffa's body in a 55-gallon steel drum 15 feet down. This was specific enough, and backed by some radar data, that the FBI decided to do a full-scale search in 2021 and 2022.
And what did they find?
On July 4th, 2022, they announced the results. Nothing of evidentiary value. It was another dead end. Most experts on the Detroit mob always thought the long-haul transport was too risky anyway.
And just to put one more myth to rest, what about Giant Stadium?
That one's been definitively refuted. The stadium was demolished in 2010. Extensive surveys were done. No human remains were ever found.
So if New Jersey is a bust, we have to come back to the Hoffa memo's original conclusion. Quick local disposal in Detroit.
We come back to the most chilling and efficient theory, the one the FBI still believes is most likely. It's known as the Detroit cremation theory. The sequence goes like this. 1. Hoffa is lured from the Red Fox by Chucky O'Brien. He's taken just a couple of miles away to a mob-connected house in Bloomfield Hills.
And that's where he's murdered.
That's where he's murdered. Step 2. Then, sequence 3, and this is the most gruesome part. His body is transported again just another 2 miles to a sanitation facility or incinerator in Hamtramck, Michigan. There, his remains were allegedly processed through a meat grinder. A detail supported by historical FBI wiretaps of mobsters discussing this exact disposal method. The final step was incineration. The processed remains were burned, reducing them to ash that could be mixed with industrial waste. And in a final, horrifying twist, that facility mysteriously burned to the ground a few months later, destroying any lingering evidence.
So if that theory is true, there is literally nothing left to find. It explains 50 years of failed searches.
It explains everything. It's the signature of a perfectly executed mob hit. No physical evidence, no body, and therefore no prosecutable case.
As the 50th anniversary approached in July 2025, the case came roaring back into the public consciousness.
It did, and the loudest voice demanding answers was Hoffa's son, James P. Hoffa. He'd been the Teamsters president himself for over 2 decades. He used the spotlight of the anniversary to make a direct, emotional plea to the U.S. government.
What did he ask for?
He went on Fox Nation and looked straight at the camera. He said, "I call on President Trump to release the Hoffa files once and for all. Let's find out what really happened. Our family deserves the full, unredacted truth."
Did the administration respond to that?
They did. In October 2025, the Trump administration issued a really extraordinary directive. It ordered all FBI employees to conduct an immediate priority search of their systems for any and all records related to Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. This was part of a broader push by that administration to release files on historical mysteries, like the JFK assassination. The stated goal was transparency.
If we've had thousands of pages released over the years, what could possibly still be classified?
It almost certainly comes back to the informant dilemma. Protecting the identities of confidential sources who were still alive or whose families could be in danger. And there's also the simple reluctance of any government agency to admit to its failures. The full files might show exactly where the investigation went wrong or where it was compromised.
So let's reflect on this. 50 years, conclusive DNA, an identified hit team, a clear motive, and yet total impunity for the killers. What does that tell us about the power of the mob versus the limits of our legal system?
It shows that the mob's code of silence, omerta, can be more powerful than any amount of circumstantial evidence a prosecutor can gather. It's a textbook case of how destroying physical evidence and silencing witnesses can defeat the system. The system requires proof, not just internal certainty.
It's just a tragic legacy. His life showed how deeply organized crime could penetrate American labor. And his death was this humiliating moment where the mafia proved they could eliminate one of the most powerful men in the country and get away with it, scot-free.
And that's the consensus we're left with. Lured by his foster son, murdered by New Jersey mobsters, his body likely incinerated in Detroit. But knowing the truth and proving it in court, those are two different realities. The endless search for his body is really a quest for a tangible piece of closure that the mob expertly denied his family and the country.
We've traced this 50-year futility. A labor hero's rise, the creation of the mob's private bank, the DNA breakthrough, the certainty of the Hoffa memo, and the strategic choice to protect informants over prosecuting killers. James P. Hoffa's quest for closure continues, a quest that even prompted a presidential order.
And as we close, it leaves us with one final provocative question. When a government decides that protecting its intelligence methods is more important than prosecuting known killers in a case this big, You have to wonder.
Did Jimmy Hoffa die just because he crossed the mob and tried to take their money back? Or did he die because he knew a secret that the federal government couldn't afford to have revealed in open court, the full, unvarnished truth about corruption at the highest levels of American power?
Don't forget to follow Whispers of Crime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and other podcast platforms for daily updates on every crime, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Whispers of Crime. Share this episode with others who might have information about this case and help. Also, comment your suggestions below. Drop your positive review and rating. And remember to check out our recent released crime cases like this.